piggyback off each other. The first one is, how do you know when things are in God's timing? How do you know when things are in God's timing? And the second one is, how do you pace yourself when you feel ready, but God has you in a waiting state?
Got to answer that one. I'll read it for myself. Oh, no respect, no disrespect. How do you know? No, I was saying how do you know when things are in God's time? You know things are operating God's timing by it flourishing. Let's add more clarity. When it's flourishing and you're flourishing. I remember when I launched different things like Pure Again or I'm Worth the Wait or the I Follow, I Lead or the Airs, the Rubies, all the life coaching programs. I said, let's go do it, right? We go to the Y, we put our programs in place, a door shuts. At that moment, I launched something too soon. It didn't flourish. It didn't grow. It didn't have God's blessing. Listen, when God is backing something, it flourishes. When God is supporting something, it stands. When God is with it, it grows. And if you're in a place where it's just not hitting, it's just not growing, it's just not flourishing, then it's not God's timing. And when God's timing happens, you know it. It's just something inside when you know it's God's timing. Everything aligns itself. Everything comes into place. When things are not always in the place, if you don't have the money for it, then it's probably not the right timing. If you don't have the energy for it, if you don't have the time for it, if you don't have the right motives for it, it's the wrong timing. But when everything is combining itself together, his timing comes into purpose. Pass it down. How do you pace yourself when you feel ready, but God has you in a waiting state? Honesty, man. Like, man, look. It's a respect factor. It's me telling God, look, God, it's like if I worked for Shelton, right? My respect for him would determine how I work for him. If he says, Josh, I don't want you to go here and do business here, since I respect him, I won't do it. Because if I go do it without his blessing, then I will mess up something that he probably didn't share with me. So what happens is with God, my respect for him will say, God, let me pace myself. Because God, I don't want to embarrass you. God, let me be still. I want to make sure it's your perfect timing, not for me to be complacent, but while God is working for you, you work on yourself. While I'm working on me, I'm going to listen, he says, man, don't worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow worries about itself. Don't worry about how I'm going to put it together. Worry about what you can manage now, because God cares more about stewardship than surplus. He cares more about how you steward what you have more than he did supplying what you already have. So what happens, I got to ask myself, God, you do what you got to do while I'm going to work on me. I'm going to continue to meditate. I'm going to continue to pray. I'm going to continue to fast. I'm going to continue to seek you. Okay, God, it's not the perfect time to put out this book. Well, I'm going to write a second one. I'm going to write a third one. I'm going to write a fourth one. And then when God starts bringing the money for that first book, then you know it's the right time. But when you go ahead of God, I don't want to be that person to always go ahead of God and embarrass him. Nor do I want to be a person who's always behind God. It has to be a balance. But if I always acknowledge him in all my ways, I can't help but have my path directed. So many of us have to ask ourselves, the practical way of pacing yourself is to say, God, it's to count the cost. Do I have the money for it? Is it the right timing? Is it keeping me from my sleep? Is it making me eat crazy? Obviously, it's not the right time for this. Because if it's the right time, God would give me the grace to do it. If there's no grace to do it, it's going to be a grind, and it won't go smooth. Man, I remember times in Unplugged where I try to do stuff in my own effort, it just wouldn't flow. We'll see if UNC Charlotte's meant to happen. We'll see when it's time to release the programs. We'll see because it will flow. When God flows, you flow with him. The person in the boat doesn't dictate where the river flows. The river dictates where the boat goes. So if you're just content in the boat that you're in, let the river push you. Let his wind push you. Flow with him. Don't be the person like, well, shoot, I'm just gonna start walking on some water. I'm gonna start dictate how this river flows. No. But like if you at a dam in life, if you at a stopping place, stay. I've learned, man, when God say stop, hey, bro, real talk, I'm staying here. Girl, I ain't gonna get with you right now. I ain't gonna drop that ministry right now. I ain't going to do that right now because every time I do something out of God, I suffer loss. I lose money, I lose energy, I lose time. Shoot, man, when God have you in a waiting place, wait, man. But when God got you, flow and flow. But that's a unique rhythm what Jesus had with God. Jesus had a unique rhythm with God. He said, I only do what I see my Father do. He had a rhythm. Jesus started talking a lot of junk at the end. They weren't going to kill Jesus. He started saying, you know what, I am the child of God. I'm God. Kill me. Come on, because y'all taking too much time. Basically what Jesus said, man, there was times where they was going to stone him. He closed his mouth so he wouldn't die prematurely. He had a unique parallel relationship with God that he said, it's not my time yet. So let me get out of this tabernacle before these jokers start stoning me. But when it was time for him to die, he knew when it was his time. You don't know when it's your time if you don't know the God of time, who governs time. When you know him, wouldn't it be amazing when you could say, I'm going to buy this building now. I'm going to do this now. And it actually works, because what embarrassed Christians, we're going to be married in a year. You start declaring things that God's saying, bro, I don't back that. We walking around buildings 18 times, 46 times, like, God, this is my building. God said, I got your building off South Boulevard, bro. Why you over there walking around this one? But when you in tune with God, you will always get from God what's in his will. Effortless. If you pray God's will and you pray in his timing, man, stuff start clicking. But when you pray against God's will and you're not in his will, you can walk around that building 20 times. You can be speaking until you're blue in the face. That building will not be yours. So that's just what I want to say on that. Anyone else?
How do you pace yourself when you feel ready, but God has you in a waiting state? I think it's important to recognize that God, as our Father, will never withhold something from us that it's time for us to have. And so if you feel ready for something, if you feel ready for marriage or a certain career or school or whatever it is, if you feel ready for something and God hasn't manifested it to you yet, or it hasn't been made clear to you yet, or it's not there in your life yet, chances are that you're not ready for it. And like I always say every time I get up here, y'all gonna get sick of it, but it's true. It's in the Bible. Jeremiah, you know what I'm getting ready to say. Jeremiah 17:9, the heart is wicked and deceitful above all things. And so often we feel like we're ready for things, and so we go get it, and then everything falls apart because we went and got it, and we really weren't ready for it. And you know, if you look at it, the fact that God knows us so much better than we know ourselves, like he has this divine superior knowledge of us. And so he's not going to, he knows what's in you. And he knows if I bring you your husband now, if I bring you your wife now, if I open this door for you to get to this place in your career, if I open the door so you can win, $10 million in the lotto, if I do this, that, and the third, there's something in your heart, there's something in your life, there's some sin that you're practicing that's going to ruin that thing that you've been praying for. There's something that you're doing, there's something that's happening in you, there's something that's there that you're neglecting, something that your wicked and deceitful heart is hiding from you, and it's not allowing you to see, so you can't correct it, and it's going to ruin the very thing that God intended for you. So why would God bring you his son as your husband if there's something in you that's going to ruin that relationship, something in you that's going to hurt that man? Why would he do the same for you, men? Why would he bring you a woman if there's something in you that's going to taint her, something that's going to cause her to fall away from Christ? Why would he bring you that job? Why would he bring you that car? Why would he bless you financially? Why would he do any of the things that we're praying for, any of the things that we think that we're ready for, if there's something in our heart that would cause us, or some sin that we're practicing that would cause us to ruin and destroy that thing? That's not God. God is not in he's in the humbling business, but he's not in the embarrassing business. So he's not going to put you in a position where you're embarrassed and he's embarrassed. He may put you in a position where you're humbled, but he's not going to put you in a position where you're embarrassed, if that makes sense. So do a heart check and say, okay, God, what's going on inside of me that makes me feel like I'm ready for this thing so much? and what's going on inside of me that has the potential to ruin this thing that I feel that I'm ready for, and get me ready. And like I always say, you know, sometimes we have to take the initiative and hand things over to God and say, well, God, I really want to be married. I really want to move up in my career. I really want this job, or to buy this house, or to do this, that, and the third. But if you haven't manifested it for me, if you hadn't made it easy and plain for me, if you haven't brought it to me yet, I'm going to go ahead and assume that I'm not ready. So I'm going to give you this desire. I'm going to give you this thing. You hold on to it, and you help me work on me, and you show me what's going on inside of me so I can get myself right, so that one day I will be ready. And when I am ready, I'll be able to manage this thing. I'll be able to care for this thing. I'll be able to steward it in a way that God gets all the glory. Because if we do it any other way, we'll get all the glory. And we all know how that story ends. So that's my 2 cents.
Yeah, a lot of the same things they're saying already. Before Peter walked or stepped out onto the water, what did Jesus say? He said, "Come." And if you step out on that water before Jesus said, "Come," you might drown. So that's right there. You wait on God's timing. And a lot of times when we're waiting, it's not that God is trying to put our plan together. He's trying to put something together or anything. Like, he probably got it all figured out. He's waiting on fixing us for his promise. So keep that, definitely, please remember that. And I always say this, sometimes you have to turn your waiting room into your working room. Do what you can until you're ready to do what God wants you to do with your life. And don't take too long waiting. Sometimes we want to wait on God for everything. When God's saying, I want you to step out on faith. And so sometimes you have to be sensitive to that. Because sometimes if you wait so long on God, he'll find somebody else to do what he called you to do. So you don't want that to happen.
And I'll say this, and we're in it. You know you're ready for something when you don't even think about what you're ready for. You know you're ready when it doesn't affect you no more. If you talk a lot about that you're ready and that you want it, chances are you're not prepared to want it. When a person wants a wife or wants a husband, they're too busy caught up in God and working for God, they forgot what they even want. Because that person, while they may be ready, but that doesn't mean that they're right at that moment. But the last thing I want to say is consult people who have already been proven to be ready for what you want to be ready for. Sometimes you got to ask people, man, look, I got Pastor Gould, I ask him sometime. I ask him questions about certain things because he's already lived and already done it. And he may look at me, Josh, I don't think you're really ready for it because he actually lived through it. And so sometimes you got to consult people who's already done certain things so you can so you won't have to worry about going through the same things they went through. Because sometimes counsel will let you know you may not be ready. But don't make that counsel your God, though. You don't want to be that person where everything they say, you over there listen to that person. But you're a person that's willing to absorb information so that you can know, I didn't think of it like that. I didn't think about it like this. I didn't know that accounting requires this much. I didn't know that owning a building requires this much liability insurance. I didn't know. And you begin to learn, wow, I'm really not ready to manage all of that. So that's it. So everyone's good? Let's go ahead and pray and get you guys home. We're getting kind of late. Let's give it up for our panel. Anybody have any? Oh.